Hi, my name is Nicole House, and this is my tort liability module 13. First of all, the definition of tort law is that it is usually something that concerns civil wrongs. It is based on the legal premise that individuals are liable for the consequences of their own conduct. There are two types of tort laws: intentional torts, when an individual attempts or intends to cause harm to another, and negligent torts, which are actually more common in education. There are four elements to this: the duty for the teacher to protect the student, whether or not there was a breach of that duty, the proximate cause, meaning did the breach of duty cause the situation to happen, and if there was any injury involved. The first case is the Anchorage School District found negligent when a kindergarten student left the classroom under the teacher's care and walked out the walkway to their parent. The student tripped, which is something that's common amongst young students, but unfortunately they fell into a pine shrub, which impaled their eye with a stick. The eye was not injured, and the student immediately stood back up with the parent there. And when it was realized that the student was bleeding, they called emergency services. It was later found that the student experienced brain injury, which caused lifelong complications for him. So the reactive measures, obviously with the parent there, calling emergency services once they realized that the student was bleeding was the right thing to do. They did inform the site and district administration and then filed appropriate paperwork for the injury happening on campus. Any proactive measures I would think would be to rope off that area until the situation is taken care of, whether it be removing the shrub or fixing the walkway, and making sure that employees are aware of emergency procedures and updating those if necessary. Things like the address for the school sometimes are something that people don't think of until an emergency happens. Next, we have Hall versus Jones Jefferson County, which is in the state of Alabama. This happened during a PE class when two students were playing basketball with the class, and one thought that the other was guarding him a little bit too roughly. A fight broke out. The case was found that the school district was negligent because the teacher at the time had been in another part of the gym speaking with the girls' PE teacher. So technically not supervising the students at the time. The reactive measures were to assess the injury and then call or send to the school nurse, depending on if the student can walk. Call the parent, obviously, and inform the site and district administration of what had happened, then file the appropriate paperwork. The proactive measures would be to review the expectations and rules with the staff regarding what their supervision and responsibilities are, and then possibly reduce the student to teacher ratios. I know this is a cost issue, but sometimes those PE classes do have quite a few students in them. Next is the student named Council versus Monte Vista School District. This is a freshman football player who experienced a head collision that caused a concussion. Unfortunately, the coaches at the time had not been trained in concussion protocol, and so they sent him back out to play and wanted to win the game. The student was known for being one of the best players. Unfortunately, other players said that something didn't seem right. He was later found vomiting in the locker room, but nothing was done until his father met him back at the school and took him to the emergency room. So the district was found liable here and awarded the family $7.1 million. The reactive measures should have been to call 911 or hopefully have somebody on staff there that would have known what to do, call the parents and call the administrators. The proactive measures, obviously things have changed since then, but the athletic staff should have gone through the concussion protocol training, and the administrator needs to review procedures that are to be carried out during a student injury, especially this happened to be an away game, so they were not even at their own school. In the Etheridge versus Gray and Wells, Etheridge was a teacher who reprimanded the first student, Gray, for coming into the classroom disruptively while she was on the phone. The second student, Wells, then got involved, and her reaction to both was to send them both to the principal's office for an on-campus suspension. At that point, the students shared something that had happened 5 months earlier in class, that the teacher accused a student from another school of stealing a computer from her son, and possibly was speaking negatively about that student. So they shared that with the principal, who then suspended the teacher. At that time, the students then were bragging on social media, and the teacher ended up being fired over what was supposedly happening in her class. The reactive measures there would be obviously to speak to the teacher first and see what exactly was going on. Proactive measures should have been to mentor this teacher, obviously have administrators in the class a little more frequently. It came out later that the teacher was frequently having these kinds of conversations with students, that she was on her cell phone frequently. And so it just seems like things were a little out of hand before it even got to this point. So hopefully that would have been something that could have been avoided. Next is Johnson Johnson and the School District of Millard. This is a case where first grade students were being taught in a PE class, or music class, I'm sorry, how to sing and play the game of London Bridge. The teacher demonstrated for them, gave them some expectations of how to play and be appropriate. But what ended up happening was that a student was released and fell into a bookcase that caused a cut over their eye. The parents are suing for medical expenses for permanent disfigurement causes and pain and suffering. The reactive measures obviously should have been to immediately check on the student, call 911 or the school nurse if needed, and call the parents immediately. The proactive measures would have been to evaluate the appropriate use of space with the PE teacher. Maybe being in a classroom is not the right place to be doing an activity like this. And again, regularly visiting the classroom. Knowing that these are first grade students, the teacher was found to have her back to the class while this was happening. So again, supervision was not appropriate. These are the references that I used for this case in my Module 13 for tort law. Thank you.